Hi guys, today I'll be reviewing the film REC4 Apocalypse, the fourth film in the REC franchise, and it takes place directly after the events in the second and third film. This installment is directed by Jaume Balagueró, who co-directed the first and second film with Paco Plaza. The first two films in this series were shot in the found footage style. The third one went away from that. While initially beginning as the found footage aspect, it went into a more traditional type filmmaking. And this one follows suit with spots of the found footage aspect, but overall filmed a traditional way. The film starts off with the GEO, or the Grupo Especial de Operaciones, or the Special Group of Operations, going into the apartment building from the first two films where the infection originally took place. And if you remember, this infection is not biological in origin, but rather supernatural, beginning with a demonic possession. One of the task force members of the GEO, Guzman, encounters Angela Vidal, who is a news reporter that we saw in the previous two films. She doesn't appear to be infected, so she gets rescued from the apartment building before it is destroyed. Later, Angela and Guzman wake up kind of disoriented and not knowing how they got there. Guzman is on a bunk and wakes up, and Angela is strapped to a cot in a lab where she is getting samples taken from her because I guess they're checking to see if she's infected. And surprisingly, the samples come back negative. She is disoriented, like I said, and scared. She manages to escape and runs into Guzman, who helps her because they're being chased by armed men. They make their way through and discover they're in a ship. They make their way to the deck. They get surrounded by the armed men, who then one of the men then tells them that they are on the ship as a safety precaution to make sure that they're not infected, something along those lines. So Angela is told she won't be, strapped down, so they are restrained. So she goes off to rest and take some more tests. Guzman then meets Captain Ortega, who tells him that they have no communication with the outside world, supposedly as a safety precaution, and that there's lab equipment and cages of animals in the bottom of the ship, or that were loaded into the ship. And they also meets Nick, who is the, I guess, in charge of communications and the computers and security cameras and things like that. And he has a slight obsession with Angela, which fits in later on in the film. The captain also tells Guzman that they occasionally have blackouts having to do with the lab equipment. And they have one of these blackouts, and somehow the monkeys that they have been testing on in the lab facility escape. The monkey attacks the chef, who then infects the food, and all the crew that eat the food then become infected. And then we have Angela, Guzman, Nick, Captain Ortega, and various others trying to escape the infected and get off the ship. Now, although I enjoyed this film and I do think it's a solid entry in the series, it is by far the weakest entry in the series in my opinion. I think some of the main issues I had with this film had to kind of do with the environment or atmosphere of it. While in the first two films and even the third, you have this infection that starts out, and this group of people, the people in the apartment building, and then the wedding reception, that are totally unprepared for anything of this magnitude to be happening. And the panic and all the things that ensue are really what made it very interesting. While in this film, you have a group of people on board who are mostly armed and not only expecting this infection to possibly get out, and they're prepared for it. And so there's that lack of a weakness there that you see in the previous three films that I think takes away a little bit from the overall plot and even the kind of terror that you would get normally that was in the previous three films. Angela's growth and development, and just overall her character in this film and in the first two, is very interesting because she goes from being, like I said, somebody who's kind of thrust into the situation that they're totally unprepared for, to becoming an antagonist in the second film where the possession has fully overtaken her, to a character that you're kind of unsure of how to feel about, because in one instance she's, again, scared. In another instance she's super aggressive and powerful. And throughout the film, that juxtaposition of her character is just really interesting. Of going from this extremely weak character to an extremely strong one. Somebody that you're sympathetic for to someone that you're not sure if they are still affected, but the, you know, possession has made them so intelligent, or their body, to have kind of this way to mask signs of infection, and if she is really infected or not. And I enjoyed seeing her again in this film. I also really enjoyed some of the twists that are later on in the film, as well as a character that is viewed as kind of extremely weak and kind of easy fodder for the infected to becoming somewhat of a hero of the story. But this film overall just didn't feel quite as engaging to me or suspenseful as the previous three, especially the first two, just because of the lighting and the setup of the apartment building. I just felt that was really effective in creating that kind of atmosphere of being on the edge of your seat and not knowing what's going to happen. A little less so in the third, but still enjoyable. But this one is just, I didn't get that same feeling, and I'm not quite sure what it was. And also, I do have to give the REC franchise props, because for such the minuscule budget that these films have, they still effectively deliver gore, effects, good acting, and even good cinematography for such a small budget. And I've seen films, horror and non-horror films, with quadruple this budget that kind of fell on all those fronts. And this film also leaves it kind of open for another sequel later on. I do hope that if they continue on with the series, they go back to the roots in the original two films rather than the format of the newer films they've been putting out. But overall, I give REC 4 a 6.5 out of 10. It was still a good film. I still liked it. It was just a bit disappointing compared to the previous three. But that was my review, and as always, thank you so much for watching. Bye.